The shocking truth of a girl sold to a mountain man by her stepfather after a pregnancy scandal. In a quiet, unassuming town, the whisper of a scandal rippled through the streets like a sudden storm. The air was charged with rumors, each one more outrageous than the last. A young girl, barely 16, had vanished from her home under the most bizarre circumstances. Her stepfather had sold her to a mountain man, a notorious recluse living in the shadowy depths of the Appalachians. No one could believe it. How could a man do this to his own flesh and blood? The town buzzed with shock, disbelief, and something darker. Was it really about the pregnancy? Was the girl a victim, or had she run off with the enigmatic man? She was last seen sneaking out under the cover of night, her wide eyes glistening with fear yet daring and determined. The moonlight illuminated her tear-streaked face as she glanced back at her home, the place she'd known her entire life, now feeling like a cage. The townsfolk gathered, murmurs turning into shouts, every word sharp and edged. A mix of concern and morbid curiosity painted their faces, their breaths hanging in the chilling autumn air. Every single passerby had an opinion. Some sympathized with the girl, seeing her as a victim of a twisted game of desperation, while others couldn't help but judge, questioning her character, whispering about rumors of her past. "Did you hear? She was always hanging out with that older boy," one woman said, shaking her head. "This isn't just coincidence." Another chimed in, frowning. The tension was thick, an invisible wall of speculation and judgment that left no one untouched, and as the story unfolded, it became clear that the mountain man's reputation was steeped in intrigue. They said he was a recluse, but what did that really mean? What secrets rumbled within the walls of his rustic cabin? Was he a savior, or something much worse? The mystery deepened as chilling stories of his past echoed through the town, tales of strange disappearances and mercurial moods. He was said to be a craftsman of secrets, and now, one of those secrets had walked out of the shadows and into the light. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the clouds rolled over the mountain peaks, the girl stood at a crossroads filled with chaos and uncertainty. The chill of the night wrapped around her, and a shiver coursed through her spine as she realized there was no turning back now. With the echo of distant howls and the weight of her choices pressing down, she took a step into the unknown. What awaited her in the wilderness of those towering mountains? Would she meet her unlikely savior or her unraveling? The questions loomed heavy, and only time would reveal the shocking answers. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and pine as she ventured deeper into the heart of the Appalachian woods. Each step was laden with uncertainty. The darkness felt like a living entity wrapping around her, whispering secrets of the many travelers who had come before her, some lost forever. Her heart raced. Thoughts swirled like the leaves in the cold wind. Why had she left? Was it freedom she sought, or was it something far more dangerous? The stories she'd heard snatched from the mouths of housewives over coffee echoed in her mind. Tales of bloodied sunsets and flickering lanterns in the mountain man's cabin swirled with the smell of fear. With every crunch of leaves beneath her feet, the fear clawed at her insides. She had come to escape a life that felt like quicksand, yet here she was, under the looming specter of the very man who haunted the whispers of her town. And then, from the shadows between the trees, she spotted a flicker of light. Could it be the cabin? Hope rushed through her veins, but her instincts screamed to retreat. But curiosity outweighed fear. She took another step, cautiously approaching the warmth permeating from the space ahead. With trepidation gripping her heart, she pushed through the underbrush, revealing a clearing bathed in the flickering glow from a small cabin. It was rugged but inviting, a stark contrast to the forbidding darkness surrounding it, but then she froze. A figure stood silhouetted by the entrance, framed by the light. She could barely make him out, but the posture was imposing, rooted in the earth like a mountain itself. Her breath hitched in her throat. "Is someone there?" His voice was gravelly, like stones rolling down the mountainside. It was low and commanding, sending ice through her veins. Terror willfully begged her to turn back, but another part whispered fiercely, this was it. This was the moment her life would change either for better or worse. Steeling herself, she took a shaky breath, ready to step into this new world. I'm here," she called out, her voice quaking as she emerged from the trees. He turned slowly, the light revealing his weathered face. His eyes were sharp, flickering with surprise and something unreadable. She caught a glimpse of tattoos etched on his forearms, snake-like and ominous, and a part of her wanted to recoil. "What do you want?" he asked, the edge of authority hanging in his voice. I came to find you," she stammered, the weight of her own words crashing down on her. "I'm here because I was sold." Silence enveloped the clearing, thick enough to clutch at her throat. The man's expression shifted, an unreadable mix of surprise and intrigue. "Sold?" Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind her. A group of figures, bold and wide, stepped from the shadows. The mountain man's gaze hardened, and something primal flickered in his eyes. She realized too late that leaving home was only the beginning of something much darker. "Who are you?" one of the newcomers shouted, their voice harsh and accusatory. Every instinct told her to run, but the truth was heavy on her tongue, setting the stage for conflict that would change everything. What she didn't know flickered in her thoughts as the dread wrapped around her like a vice. She had entered the lioness' den, and the only question now was, who would come out alive? The shadows loomed like dark clouds as the newcomer surrounded her, their eyes flashing with disapproval and suspicion. Their aggressive stance pushed her heart into a wild rhythm, each beat hammering against her ribcage. She caught fleeting glances of their faces, rough features and hardened gazes that spoke of lives intertwined with danger. "Get away from her!" one of them growled, stepping forward. His voice was a snarl, teeth bared like a cornered animal. The mountain man steadied himself, an iron wall against the encroaching circle of hostility. "What's your business here?" he replied, his tone unyielding, filling the space between them like a wall of stone. She sensed tension crackling in the air, a silent power struggle. "I came for help," she shouted, her voice rising above the din of uncertainty. But as her words hung there, they felt inadequate, like vapor dissipating in the chill of the night. "Help? You think he'll help you?" The snarl returned, venom dripping from the syllables. "He's not your savior. He's a monster." "Watch your mouth," the mountain man snapped back, stepping closer to her side. His presence felt like a shield, but the heat radiating from the group felt threatening and oppressive. "You don't even know her," he continued, glaring down the line of accusatory glares. "Where's your loyalty?" Loyalty. The word pierced through her own rising fears, amplifying the weight of her situation. Why had she come here? Had she traded one prison for another? Her mind raced back to the night her stepfather sold her. The betrayal had cut deep, she had never thought she would be destined for someone like him. "Shut up, Mason." Another voice rang out. This one was calmer, laced with authority. "She's not worth the risk. She could be a spy." The word hung in the air, slippery and dangerous. Her breath quickened, panic squeezing the breath from her lungs. A spy? The very thought sent icy fingers creeping up her spine. "I'm not a spy," she protested, panic turning her voice hoarse. "I came here to escape." Her words trailed off as she glanced to the mountain man, searching for some sign of understanding. "Escape?" Mason replied, his voice filled with scorn. "From what? You think he'll protect you? You're only a commodity now. A bargaining chip." "No, that's not true," she gasped, but her voice flickered under the weight of their eyes. The mountain man stiffened, a storm brewing inside him. "I don't deal in people," he said, his voice low yet rattling like thunder. Just as he spoke, the tension snapped, and the group shifted, glancing back at their leader. "Then prove it," Mason growled. "Prove she's not what we think." From the shadows, the leader stood forward. He was larger than the others, framed by flickering light. "You need to choose now, girl," he said, his voice smooth yet intimidating. "Are you with him or are you with us? Because if you trust him, you'll pay the price when this goes wrong. Choice." The word reverberated in her mind like a warning bell. She could feel the weight of her answer pressing down on her, heavy and suffocating. She had to decide, but as her heart raced, she realized the truth was far more horrifying than what lay ahead. With the last light of the day flickering around them, suffocating darkness began to creep in. Her voice felt small, drowned in fear and uncertainty as she fought to formulate a response. The moment had come, and she didn't have the answer. Her choice would unleash consequences beyond her comprehension. "Where will I fit?" she finally whispered, a crack forming in her brave facade. A moment stretched, taut as a thin wire, and deep within her, she could feel the storm of fate gathering. The silence that followed her plea felt like a black hole, swallowing everything around them. All eyes were on her, a weight greater than any tangible force pressing down. She could taste the bitterness of fear, sharp and metallic on her tongue. "Make your choice," the leader demanded, his gaze unyielding. A heavy pause hung in the air, as if the world itself had held its breath, waiting for a single sound to break the tension. At that moment, doubt flooded through her. What did she really know about the mountain man standing beside her? He had intervened, yes, but for what reason? Was he truly her protector or merely another player in a game where she was the pawn? It was dizzying, the thought of handing her fate over to someone she barely knew. Fate? She thought, clenching her fists in resolve. If escape was meant to be her only option, she had to take a leap. The very ground beneath her felt unstable, yet she pushed back against the tide of uncertainty. I'm with him." The words fled her lips, more forceful than she intended. A shudder ran through her, as if in declaring her choice, she had opened a door to realms unseen. Laughter erupted from Mason, ugly and raw. "Fool! You'll regret this choice." He spat, the venom in his words leaving a bitter trace. "Enough." The mountain man's voice boomed, sending a tremor through the gathered crowd. "You think threats make you strong, Mason? Try showing her the respect she deserves." His words hung in the air, like a knife poised above their heads. Mason's expression soured further, caught between disbelief and rage. The atmosphere thickened, static with anticipation. She could feel the bravado brimming inside the mountain man, but the tension around them hinted at a storm far worse than any she had endured before. Mason straightened himself, masking his anger behind a veneer of control. "Respect? You've damned yourself and her. And you'll find it hard to survive the consequences of this foolish choice," he warned, flicking a glance toward the shadows like a serpent sizing up its prey. The leader stepped forward, shifting the energy in the room. "We'll see what you both are made of." "Take her," he commanded, pointing at her with a long finger that felt like a gavel hitting wood. "If she is valuable, she will understand soon enough the price of loyalty. For now, put her in the cabin. I want her isolated until we decide how to proceed." Panic surged anew as she was pulled away from the mountain man, her heart racing as Mason's followers guided her away. She shot a panicked glance over her shoulder, searching for the steadying presence of her chosen ally. But there he stood, his face a mask of stone, fading from view as the darkness enveloped her. "Stop!" she protested, her voice a desperate gasp, but her cries fell into the cold emptiness. The cabin loomed before her, ominous and foreboding, its silence a choir of dread. As the door creaked shut behind her, sealing her in, she trembled against the wooden frame. What had she done? Had she truly traded one prison for another? Shadows danced along the walls, those dark tendrils curling around her like serpents. Alone in the eerie silence, a shiver raced down her spine, propelling her thoughts back to the mountain man. She longed for his reassurance, his strength to infiltrate the waves of despair crashing within her. But the weight of Mason's warning echoed in her mind, heavier than any shackles. Suddenly, she heard a faint scratching sound from behind the cabin's walls. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it just her nerves, or was something lurking in the shadows? She pressed her ear against the wood, straining to listen as dread consumed her. Breathed something was watching her, waiting. No turning back now. But as her pulse quickened, she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was only just beginning, the real horrors still hidden, waiting to be unleashed. What awaited her in this isolated cabin, and who would truly come to her aid when the shadows finally revealed themselves? The cabin creaked under the weight of its own history. A chill seeped through the cracks, as if the wooden walls held in remnants of past secrets, past screams. She could feel every pulse in her veins, the heartbeat of dread pounding against her ribs. Get a grip, she whispered to herself, but the silence only mocked her. The scratching sound grew louder, a persistent scratching, like something desperate to break free. What are you? She muttered, inching closer to the wall. Her breath caught in her throat dry as cotton. She pressed her palm flat against the rough wood, hoping to gain some insight, some sign of life. Suddenly, the scratching stopped. A suffocating stillness filled the air. A chill wrapped around her, pinching her skin. Had she imagined it? Just her nerves playing tricks, her mind convincing her of phantoms in the dark. She moved back, but the cabin shifted about her, closing in. Then came a knock, a single, deliberate rap on the door. Not the kind of knock she had been dreading, but the gentle tapping of a finger, almost pleading. It sent a shiver racing down her spine, but curiosity gnawed at her. Was it one of Mason's followers or something else? Hello? She called out, her voice barely breaking the silence. The sound seemed to bounce back at her as a feeble echo. No response. Only silence. The scratching began again, this time accompanied by a rhythmic thump, 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 as if something was trying to break its way through. She turned, pressing her back against the wall, heart racing. Stop! She shouted, a wave of panic washing over her. She glanced around wildly, looking for an escape, anything that would relieve her growing dread. Suddenly, the door shuddered on its hinges, rattled by something heavy outside. She jumped back, her mind racing. Was Mason sending someone to torment her? She thought of the mountain man. Would he come? Another knock startled her. It was almost urgent now. Please. It whispered, the voice slithering through the cracks of the cabin like smoke. I can help you. Help? She swallowed hard. The darkness crept closer, taunting her with its unseen horrors. Help me with what? She shot back. What are you? Who are you? I'm the answer to your question, the voice replied, low and fervent. You must trust me. Now. Trust, it seemed, was in short supply. Yet, the power in that voice had her wondering if maybe, just maybe, this was no coincidental encounter. With a shaky breath, she approached the door, the tension palpable. What do you know about Mason? Everything. I know why you are here. I know about the mountain man, the voice urged, insistently. But time is running out. You need to act, and you need to act fast. Her heart raced. The weight of her choices pressed down once more. Could she really trust this unseen ally? The scratching grew fainter as she hesitated. With one quick, firm movement, she swung open the door. The hinges creaked, revealing nothing. Empty space. Fear clawed at her throat. No. Wait. She cried out, peering into the darkness beyond. Then, a figure stepped into view, draped in shadows, face obscured. A chill swept through her, but his eyes glimmered with intent, a desperate plea under the cover of night. Trust me, he rasped. Now is the time. We can still turn the tide. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from deeper within the woods, shaking the night's stillness. The cabin trembled at the sound. "They're coming," he warned, urgency dripping from his voice. "We need to leave now." Her mind raced as she weighed her options. This stranger could be her salvation or her downfall. But there was no time for fear. Would she step into the unknown with him, or stay trapped in the jaws of impending doom? Uncertainty clouded her thoughts as the crashing sounds drew nearer. She made her choice, heart pounding at the leap into the unknown, as fresh screams of the storm loomed not far behind. What horrors awaited them outside? Would they find safety amidst the chaos, or was there something darker hunting them? She stepped out into the night, the door swinging shut behind her with a finality that sent a jolt through her. The man invisible in the draping shadows took her arm, his grip firm and urgent. They moved as one, racing toward the thicket of trees, the sound of crashing branches and snarls echoing behind them, drawing closer with every breath. "Who are you?" she asked, struggling to keep pace as adrenaline surged through her veins. Fear mingled with an unshakable urge to know his true identity. "I'm just a friend," he said, his voice low. "My name is Jonah. But that doesn't matter right now. Focus on running, please." Their feet crunched on dry leaves and twigs, blending into the cacophony of the wilderness. She stole a glance behind. The darkness was alive, writhing and snapping, moving with purpose, anger evident in every sound. Something terrible pursued them. "Why should I trust you?" The question fell flat against the air, heavy with doubt. Every instinct screamed to flee. But his eyes, though obscured by the night, glimmered with a sincerity that unsettled yet intrigued her. "Because if you don't, you'll end up dead." There was no time to wrangle the implications of those words. They plunged deeper into the brush, branches slapping against them like accusations. The stalker was relentless. She felt at the presence of something dark and wrong, a predatory instinct lurking just out of sight, closing in. "They're going to find us." Panic surged through her. The thought of being caught paralyzed her momentarily. "I see them," Jonah said, voice strained but steady. "Keep moving." His urgency pierced through her fog of fear. Just as she was about to ask what he could see, a loud growl echoed through the trees, jolting her back to the moment. It was unlike anything she'd ever heard, deep, rumbling, an indication of the creature turning its focus toward them. In a frantic pause, Jonah pulled her off the path into a dense cluster of underbrush. They crouched low, breaths shallow, hearts pounding as the darkness enveloped them. The growling grew quieter, replaced by the crunch of leaves, then silence waiting, bated breath clinging to the very air between them. "Do you know what Mason plans?" Jonah whispered fiercely, leaning in so close she could smell wood smoke and something raw beneath it, earthy. "The mountain man is not what you think." "What do you mean?" Her hands trembled. He'd mentioned the mountain man earlier. They hadn't discussed that man enough, the very reason she was here, trapped in this nightmare. "Mason sold you to him. It's all about control, power. It's deeper than you realize." The weight of his words collapsed over her like an avalanche. Sold. Her stomach twisted at the thought. She couldn't take it in, couldn't breathe. But why suddenly, a shadow loomed above them, a dark figure gliding between the trees, its eyes flashing with anticipation. They were running out of time. "Keep your head down and follow me," Jonah urged, his grip tightening around her wrist as he began to retreat deeper into the thicket. As they snaked further into the woods, space opened slightly, revealing a small clearing. The moonlight spilled softly into the space, illuminating a hidden world under the trees. Jonah paused to catch his breath, and she nearly slammed into his back. "What now?" she whispered. He turned, eyes frantic. "We need to find shelter. They'll come for us if we don't." A sound ripped through the quiet, shaking her heart, a terrible howl, wild and primal, echoing the very terror they faced. "What was that?" She gasped, her body instinctively tensing, ready to bolt. Jonah met her gaze, his expression stark. "It's them, they've found us." The forest seemed to close in, falling into suffocating darkness, and she felt herself teetering on the edge of despair. Did she have any fight left in her? But the thought of Mason, the mountain man, and whatever unspeakable fate awaited her drove her forward. In that moment, a choice loomed: either they could make a stand or give in to fear. As the howls grew louder, she knew she had to fight for her freedom whatever it took. Would they find a way to outsmart the lurking menace, or would they become victims of a game far more dangerous than either of them had anticipated? The howl pierced the night, wrapping around them like a vice. Jonah's face hardened as he scanned the tree, lean, muscles tense and ready. She felt her pulse quicken, a wild drumbeat against her ribcage. "Over there." Jonah pointed into the underbrush, and without thinking, she followed his lead. They moved swiftly, the crunch of leaves keeping time with the sinister melody of their pursuers. Shadows danced, flickering at the edge of her vision, hunger gleaming in those unseen eyes. Fear gripped her tighter, tightening with every flicker of sound. Jonah's grip tightened. "I can't fall behind," she told herself. She matched his pace, breaths heavy and rushed. They ducked beneath low-hanging branches, fingers grazing rough bark. The closer they got to whatever sanctuary Jonah had in mind, the sharper the howls became, a chorus of monstrous delight. "It's a pack," Jonah said, his voice low, barely above a whisper. "They stalk their prey. They won't stop until they catch you or us." "Why me?" The question slipped out, filled with confusion and desperation. "Because you're the key," he replied, quickening. "They see you as part of Mason's game. The mountain man is tied to this, to you." Her stomach flipped, a mix of dread and a sense of impending clarity. Everything she thought she knew began to unravel like fraying threads in a carpet. "What do you mean?" "Everything Mason's done, it's part of something bigger, wider connections. They want you as leverage." He glanced back, eyes flickering with urgency. "Just hold on." They stumbled into a copse of trees, the dense woods swallowing their bodies into deeper darkness. Jonah pulled her close, pointing to a hollowed-out tree, the doorway of twisted roots offering refuge. "Get in," he commanded, urgency igniting his voice. She hesitated, her mind swirling with doubt. What if this was a trap? But the sound of snapping branches behind them dismissed her internal struggle. The creatures were relentless, a twisted part of the wild working to ensnare them both. She dove into the hollow, feeling the rough wood scrape against her arms. Jonah squeezed in beside her, the darkness wrapping around them like a heavy blanket. They breathed in unison, the pulse thundering between them. Time seemed to stretch, the howls echoing in their ears, weaving through the leaves above. She could feel the heartbeat of the forest, alive and aware, seeming to synchronize with her trembling heart. "Do you trust me now?" Jonah's whisper broke the silence, curling into her thoughts. "I don't know what to believe," she managed, her voice barely catching. "Why should I?" "Because I just saved your life. And I'm risking mine too." His words were like ice crashing against her warm fear, a stark contrast that sent a shiver racing down her spine. "Mason and the mountain man, they plan to take you soon. We need to find a way out, or they will finish what they started. What do we do?" Panic seeped into her tone, desperate for any sign of a plan. Jonah hesitated, eyes locked onto the entrance. "We wait. And we listen." Outside, the world was a cacophony of growls and snorts, the air thick with danger. Each sound raised her heart rate, begging her to jump into action, to do something, anything. But Jonah held still. Then it happened. A glimmer of movement made her breath hitch. Shadows shifted just outside their makeshift refuge. Two pairs of eyes glowed in the moonlight, unblinking, watching, waiting. "They know we're here," Jonah hissed softly, his eyes wide, dark and marbles in the night. "Then we don't have time to waste." It was instinct-driven now, a pull of survival that surged through her veins. "We have to move." Jonah was already shaking his head, fear blending with determination in his expression. If we bolt, they'll chase us down. We need a plan. Outside, the shadows danced, and the howls grew louder once more closer. As the tension mounted, she realized with a jolt that everything around them was shifting, bending under the weight of her fate, the whole world teetering on the edge of a dark discovery. What if we don't have a way out? She asked breathlessly, fear clenching her throat tight. Jonah inched closer, the heat of his body blending with the cool air suffocating them. We will find one and we will get you out of here. But deep down, she felt the creeping terror settle over her heart. What if this was exactly what Mason wanted? A game that had yet to reveal its true rules. Outside, another howl echoed, resonating deep within her bones. It was time to move, time to fight back. But before they could make their next decision, another sound shattered the night, a crack of branches, thudding footsteps, closing in fast. Would they stand their ground or would fear dictate their next steps? Would the shadows consume them? The attack came without warning. A deep growl thundered from the tree line, followed by a flurry of movement. Jonah's face was painted with urgency as he pushed against the confines of the hollow, his body tense and ready for whatever nightmare waited outside. Echoes of snapping twigs morphed into a menacing symphony, drowning out the frantic pounding of her heart. She pressed herself into the roughened wood of the tree, half expecting it to melt away and release her into the cruel hands of fate. "Stay quiet," Jonah whispered sharply, the command hanging heavily in the air. But it was too late. The shadows surged, revealing a hulking form, a beast, a vision of primal chaos, its eyes a chilling reflection of malice. It paused, sniffing the air, and for a split second, the world froze around her. A flash of silver reflected in the moonlight as Jonah pulled out a small knife, its blade thin yet glimmering with a promise of protection. "If they get in, we fight," he said, voice steady despite the dread coiling in their chest. She couldn't speak, her mouth dry and her thoughts tangled in a web spun by fear and confusion. The fear was suffocating, but beneath it lay a flicker of determination. They had to fight, they couldn't let those creatures win. Just as Jonah repositioned, a snap echoed, louder and sharper than before. A foot-long creature lunged at the entrance, claws raking against the bark, tearing closer to freedom. Jonah didn't hesitate. He surged forward, knife poised, dodging the snapping jaws of the beast. She felt herself gasp, the air thick with adrenaline, when Jonah lunged through the narrow space. He struck true, the blade catching the creature and forcing it back. But she could see others closing in like dark clouds surrounding the twilight sky. "Now!" he shouted, pulling her closer to the exit. They burst from the hollow, crashing into the forest floor, racing into the shadows that had once felt like sanctuary. The howls regained their importance, a horrific melody following their wake. Jonah led her onward, bowing under the branches that slashed and scraped against them, the underbrush rising to challenge her every step. "Where are we going?" she gasped, her lungs burning from the cold night air. "Higher up the mountain. It's south, the only place they can't follow easily," Jonah called back, urgency turning his words into an echo that faded swiftly behind them. As they darted deeper into the woods, the howls melded into a deeper darkness that threatened to envelop them. The air felt electric, a pulsing anticipation coursing through her veins, urging her to keep running, to keep fighting. Suddenly, Jonah skidded to a halt. "This way." He veered off the beaten path, the thicket parting reluctantly as they plunged deeper into the thick forest where shadows lingered like secrets. Something caught her attention, movement, a flicker in the corner of her eye. A pale figure stumbled through the brush, its form barely human, collapsed and bloodied. "Help me!" It rasped, an echo that tethered them, yanking at her heartstrings. Jonah pulled her back, eyes wide with warning. "Don't, it could be a trap." But the woman, she looked familiar. The wild tangled hair, the pale skin strained with anguish, it was Marie, the woman from her childhood, a ghost she never thought she'd see again. "Please. I can't go back. Help me." Marie's voice cracked, shredding through the panic surrounding them. Torn between instinct and reason, the choice squeezed at her chest. Could she risk everything to save a woman who had never truly left her side? A chance encounter alone would mean nothing in this deadly game. But turning her back felt wrong. Jonah shifted, spilling uncertainty into the air. We can't trust her. We have to keep moving. But the howl of the pack echoed in the distance and the urgency rose like a tide. The decision loomed large between them: would they trust their instincts or fall prey to the primal fear creeping at the edges of their resolve? As she gazed at Marie, the truth began to spill like secrets finally uncovered. What if this was the key to unraveling Mason's web? She reached out, hesitating just a heartbeat, caught in the dread of exploitation and hope. Would her choice signal survival or lead to their destruction? The silence felt heavy, clinging to her skin like a second layer of fear. She glanced at Jonah, his face a mixture of resolve and anxiety, before shifting her complete attention back to Marie. The pale woman's eyes were wild, glimmering with terror and desperation. Please, you don't understand. They are coming, they will kill me. Marie's voice cracked like brittle glass, each word piercing the air with urgency. Jonah tugged on her arm. We have to go. We're not getting involved with no. She shot back, the words burning in her throat. She's not just some random stranger. I know her. The howl of the pack grew closer, a chilling reminder that time was slipping away. She made her choice, but the weight of it hung heavily. Marie was no longer just a ghost from her past, she was flesh and blood, in danger, and pleading for help. How could she turn away from that? Before she could respond, Jonah seized her shoulders, shaking her slightly. Think. What if this is just a trap? We can't get caught by whatever those things are. But Marie's anguished face penetrated reason like snowflakes on a hot day, so vulnerable, so real. You have to trust me. I've seen them, I know how to escape. The sounds of the forest morphed into menacing whispers, the snapping twigs and rustling leaves painted a picture of the oncoming threat. What do you mean? How do we escape? A flicker of hope ignited within her. As if sensing an opportunity, Marie gulped in a breath, forcing the words out. There's a cave at the base of the mountain. If we don't go now, they'll hunt us down. You don't have to trust me, just follow. Jonah cursed under his breath, glancing nervously over his shoulder as another unearthly howl shattered the night. We can't waste time debating this. It's dangerous to stand here. Marie trembled, clutching at her sides, her beauty marred by dirt and fear. I promise, I'll explain everything once we're safe. Every moment felt like quicksand, the horror inching closer as she weighed the risk. Marie's urgent pleas clawed at her mind. She couldn't just leave her. All right, she said, the words tumbling out. We'll go with you. Jonah blinked, shock written across his features, but the howl of the pack left no room for dispute. Follow me. Marie instructed, limping toward the shadows under the low-hanging branches. They darted after her, adrenaline propelling them forward. The dense thicket clawed at their arms, vines and branches wrapping like fingers trying to hold them back. Every snap and rustle echoed through the silence, a reminder that danger lingered just behind them. Keep moving. Jonah urged, his voice snapping through the tension. She matched his pace, the thudding of her heart pounding in tandem with their desperate sprint. The trees began to thin, leading them to a small clearing where the moonlight cascaded down like a spotlight. That's when Marie paused, pointing dramatically toward a darkened mouth of an opening in the mountainside. There. She gasped, her eyes flickering with hope and fear. As they approached, the ground trembled underfoot, a low growl resonating from the shadows. Jonah turned quickly, eyes wide. They're right behind us. With no time to argue, they plunged into the cave's maw, the darkness swallowing them whole. The air inside was stale, and the muffled howls faded into the background, replaced by the sound of heavy breathing and echoing footsteps. What do we do now? She whispered to Marie, uncertain. Trust me, Marie began, but the words were drowned out by the thundering sounds of claws scrabbling against stone. I'll guard the entrance, Jonah said, brandishing his knife, eyes fierce and resolute, bracing himself like a dam against a rising tide. "Wait," she pleaded. "What if you can't hold them off?" But Jonah met her gaze with an intensity that made her heart lurch. "I need you to listen. No matter what happens, you need to find a way out and not look back. Promise me." As they stood there, the weight of the moment pressed down on them. Loyalty and fear wrestled for dominance, chaos erupted behind them, the beasts were almost there. "Go!" Jonah shouted, voice straining with the urgent weight of finality, and just like that, she faced Marie, ready to leap into the unknown depths of the cave, body tense, heart racing. But before she could take a step, a chilling scream vibrated through the air, making her freeze in place. What horror lay within those shadowed depths? And would they even survive the night? Inside the cave, silence pressed in, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. The darkness felt alive, each breath echoing off the damp walls, every thumping heartbeat unwelcome in the stillness. She wanted to scream, to call out for Jonah, but fear held her tongue. Time ticked like a distant heartbeat, and her thoughts spiraled. What had she chosen? Marie was crouched close, her wild eyes darting as if awaiting danger at any moment. "We need to hide," she whispered urgently. The word struck like a thunderclap, and her instincts kicked in. With a swift nod, they found a crevice in the stone, just wide enough to squeeze into. They pressed against the cool rock, hearts pounding as the world outside erupted with sound: the howl of the beasts, the shouts of hunters, the snapping of branches. "Breathe," Marie murmured, a mantra against the chaos, but how could she when Jonah was fighting for them? Every echoing clamor felt like a punch to her stomach, the gnawing worry that he might be hurt tearing at her resolve. Every second ticked by like a knife against her will. Would he hold them back? Would he escape the jaws of whatever hunted them in the woods? Then came a piercing scream. It echoed like a bell tolling in her mind, resonating sharp and cold. "Jonah!" She gasped, unable to restrain the sound. She shot a glance at Marie, who squeezed her eyes shut, draining color from her face. The air grew thick with foreboding, the atmosphere shifting as reality crashed down. "They're near," Marie breathed, the tremor in her voice taut with fear. "We might have to move, away from the entrance." Before she could decide, the ground beneath them trembled, a growl vibrating through the rocky walls, a reminder that nothing here was safe. Marie shifted, her eyes wide, sensing it too. They crept deeper into the shadowed cave, feeling the walls clawing close, the damp earth shifting beneath their feet. Darkness surrounded them, cold and suffocating, but they kept pushing forward, hearts galloping as if they were the hunted. Then voices drifted through the stillness. "He's got to be around here somewhere." A familiar voice, sharp and accusing. "Mason. He can't protect her now." The words lashed at her skin, igniting fury and fear in equal measure. The sound of footsteps echoed. She recognized the urgency mixed with disdain. They were closing in. Suddenly, a flash of hope coursed through her veins. Jonah had to have made it. He needed to know they weren't alone. They couldn't let Mason tear everything apart again. "Come on," she urged Marie, sensing that fate was unraveling. "Where?" Marie's eyes widened, panic creeping back in. "Down." She shoved toward a darker recess of the cave. They were racing against time, limbs moving faster than breaths taken. The sounds grew louder, another growl from the mouth of the cave that made her gut churn with instinctive dread. They rounded a bend, and there it was, an opening. A faint glow flickered beyond, illuminating the path ahead just enough that she could see. Freedom could be waiting, but then a shout froze her in place. "Get them!" Mason's voice rang clear, shifting the atmosphere into thick, oppressive terror. "Run!" Marie screamed, the urgency in her voice slicing through the moment. They surged forward, slipping through the opening like shadows. Suddenly, they emerged on the other side of the cave, the moonlight splashing across the snow-covered ground. Cold air hit her lungs, invigorating yet terrifying at the same time. With wild abandon, they darted out, racing through the glade as snarls echoed behind them, but as they pushed deeper into the wilderness, other sounds began to shift around them, frantic barks and snaps echoing through the air. It was then that a pulse of strength surged inside her, giving her the will to flee. "Keep moving, don't look back," she shouted, the fear pressing at her heels, urging her onward. Marie stumbled alongside her, breathless, eyes wide. Behind them, the chaos of their pursuers reverberated through the trees, a fading promise of doom. The moon hung overhead, a witness to their flight. Through the night, they were hurtling through the underbrush, jagged branches whipping against their skin, hearts pounding with despair and determination. Until one final scream erupted from the darkness behind, a sound too chilling, knowing it was Jonah's voice. "Go! Get to the mountains!" Jonah's bellow cut through them both like ice. The pained urgency forced her to keep running, but her heart splintered at the sound of his struggle. "Jonah! We can't leave him!" she shouted, the words tearing from her without control. "He won't make it." Marie's voice was frantic. "He told us to go." Each heartbeat felt gutted by the truth of those words, but she couldn't just abandon him. Not now, with everything at stake. Mason's game had spiraled out of control, and somehow, deep inside, she understood that whatever twisted fate lay ahead, they needed to face it together. Suddenly, thoughts of Jonah flooded her heart, a warm ember igniting in the depths of despair. "I'm going back." She pulled away from Marie, racing back through the trees, each step a push against all the pain around them. "Wait!" Marie's cry echoed, but she was already moving, plunging back into the shadows of the thick forest, guided by desperation, and then, as clarity pierced through chaos, she found herself back at the mouth of the cave, breathless, heart racing. The entrance loomed like a dark mouth, glimmering a threat of whatever waited beyond. But she couldn't falter, she had to try. Inside, shadows writhed. The tension was thick, alive. Jonah was in danger, and whatever horror awaited her, she wouldn't let him fight alone. "Jonah!" She screamed into the darkness, and then she saw him, silhouetted against the depths of the cave, a struggle flickering like a flame. Mason's followers circled around him like vultures, but he stood firm, eyes blazing with raw determination. "Get back!" he shouted, defiance cemented in every word. But they were advancing, eyes gleaming hungrily. "Stop!" she yelled, stepping forward, her voice rising against the cacophony of malice. "You won't take him." The tension snapped at her boldness as their heads turned, eyes widening at the unexpected confrontation. "Mason sold me!" she cried, fear fusing with rage. "But I choose to save him." The crackle of silence followed, eyes transformed into uncertainty. For a moment, it held, and she could feel every breath within that frozen moment. "Leave him alone." Her voice rang through, loud, clear, and in that seeing of one another, a split of fate took place. Jonah met her gaze, surprise mixed with something profoundly grateful igniting within his eyes. "Help me," he pleaded, strength pouring into the word like a lifeline. In that heartbeat, decisions were made, paths forged anew. "Let him go." She spoke again, tension imbued with fierce belief. "You think he's just some game, but we know your secrets." As the echo of her defiance lingered in the air, the tide shifted. Hearts raced, breaths hitched, but she felt the warmth ignite a flame. And with that fire, courage surged anew. "Enough of this," the leader of Mason's followers finally bellowed, confusion shaken away like debris, a battle loomed in his eyes. "Let us finish what we started." But as the words tumbled like stones, she stepped forward, every inch driven by strength she never knew she possessed. "We'll fight together," Jonah said, joining her side, his spirit resembling an unstoppable force. And as the followers advanced on them, fueled by anger and bitterness, she knew what must be. They would face whatever was thrown at them side by side, the bond had formed. One last scream tore from her lips, launching the final stance against everything breathed within the shadows. Then they were charging into the fray together, ready to claim their freedom. Together. Forever, silence enveloped the darkened forest, caution morphing into faith as they faced the unknown. The battle might be just beginning, but they had one another, and that made all the difference. As the dust settled around them, lives interspersed like flickering stars, the shadows behind them dimmed in acceptance. They had chosen their fate, it was now time to rewrite their story. The night swirled around them, a world alive, unfurling anew, filled with promise and strength. And in that moment, everything suddenly felt possible. Listen up, friends. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for all the craziness happening here. Smash that like button now, don't let this story get lost in the abyss. Flood that comments section with your thoughts and theories. What should happen next? Show your creativity and passion, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic conclusion. Your support fuels our journey, and we're so grateful to have you on this ride.